going on, beautiful people? Doing a wonderful little video over here, and it's just something that came to my attention. A wonderful video about something that came to my attention. And as I talked about in some of my previous videos, there are some peaks of how good life is at the moment, and then there's the valleys of how bad life feels at the moment. And I want to talk about those valleys, those drop-off points, the progression from feeling on top of the world to the progression of feeling at rock bottom, and how to deal with it, and how it typically goes, and how I deal with it and move forward from it. Well, so you're riding high on top. Let's say you got a promotion at work, everything's coming up you. If you're a college student, you just passed the test. Everything is going just swimmingly. Everything is just going just great. You don't want anything to change. And then something small happens, right? Something small happens. Like, for instance, you get a flat tire. Or, something that's not like a big major thing, but it's small enough to, like, man, that sucks. And you think in your head, man, that really sucks. Well, it's just that one thing. I'm just gonna keep trucking along, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and then something else happens. Basically, you're going into the decline, right? And the further you keep going down into that decline, the worse these small things feel. For instance, if you got a sudden flat tire at the top, it wouldn't feel as bad if you got a sudden flat tire at the bottom. Okay? And it's just all in your head. It's all mental thinking, because it compounds. These things compound exponentially. They don't have the same level at different spots of the fall, right? And how do you deal with something like that? I mean, at first you're trying to stay all positive. Typically, you're just trying to stay all positive and trying to work through it. You're like, oh, it just happened. It could happen to anybody, right? And then after your flat tire, let's just say, oh, well, something else happened with the vehicle, or you got denied a scholarship, or or something at work happened that you feel as though it's going to put in jeopardy of your career, and it just feels as though if it's just one thing after another, and these things compound, and you start feeling them more and more the further it goes down, until you finally hit that damn bottom, and it's just like, for, I don't know, maybe 2-3 days, depending on how positive your attitude is, maybe a week if you're a very negative type person, but you're just like, man, woe is me, the world just trying to get it out to me, right? The world is trying to get me, is basically what you're going to be thinking. It's like, you can't have good without the bad, right? I mean, that's just simple, I don't know, simple maths, if you will. So how do you deal in situations like that? I mean, how do you get the motivation to keep on trucking when it feels like everything is trying to prevent you from going forward? Well, let me tell you, it is much easier for you and somebody else possibly to drag you down than it is easier for somebody to help lift you up. And what I mean by that is, you're going to feel the good a lot better, or you're going to feel the good was like much harder to get than the bad. You're just going to feel as though the bad can happen like that, and that's what it's going to feel like. The good can also happen just like that too, but in your mind, it's much harder to feel better about something when it's much easier to feel worse about something. You get what I'm trying to say here? Yeah, hopefully I make a little bit of sense there. So what do you do in a situation like that? I mean, this is going to happen regardless of what you do, regardless of how positive outlook your life is. There's always going to be the ups and downs. So how do you deal with the downs? I mean, first off, you have to realize it's literally a part of life. It is literally a part of life. It is going to happen regardless of how well everything's going, how well you feel. There's going to be some downs that just start compounding upon each other to knock you down, to make you feel bad. Murphy's Law, that's what I was thinking of. It's Murphy's Law. You know, anything that can happen will happen, right? So how do you deal in situations like that to where it's like to where you still feel good, you know, you try staying positive as much as stuff like that? First off, you have to realize it's going to happen, right? You have to realize that there's going to be, after all this good things that's happened to you, there's going to be some things that are going to be bad, right? And then second thing, you have to realize, typically, there's always these weird exceptions. And I know what some of you guys say, some of you complainers might say, it's like, it's always bad for me. Whatever. I'm not talking about how bad your life is. But what I mean is, typically these bad things are actually really minor in the grand scheme of things. It's just in your mind they've compounded so much that something small is going to be blown out way out of proportion. For instance, the tire situation. If you're riding high and then suddenly you get a flat tire, you're like, well, shit, it's just a flat tire. Let me get it done and keep moving forward, right? But if you're riding low on everything after, let's just say you got some bad news at work, or you made a D on a test or C- on a test, and you might lose your scholarship and all that stuff, and then suddenly you get a flat tire, you're like, fuck, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, yada yada yada. And you got to realize is that it's not as bad as it seems, regardless of what level you're at. All right, so it's typically smaller things that are just going to keep compounding and compounding. The best thing you could do at it is, regardless, is try to stay as positive as possible and keep moving forward. The best way I could describe this is if you look at a diagram like this, right? If you look at like a financial diagram, there's always going to have the ups, there's always going to have the downs, always have the ups. Okay, and what that means is it's always going to go down, right? However, when it goes down, it is going to nowhere be as low as it was the previous time it went down, right? So you have to try keeping that down as high as possible. It's a very weird concept. It's very weird, right? And the way to do that is if you keep trucking along, okay? You have to mix it. You have to mix in the good with the bad. In other words, the way I look at it is like this: when you're extreme dieting, let's say you're doing keto, all right? You're doing keto, you're sticking with it. You're gonna have to have. They even recommend this before your body enters a very bad state. Is that you're gonna have those days where you break the keto rules and suffice yourself with the bad things that keto says you don't need or don't want to have. Why? Because your body technically does need it. It just needs it in a different kind of, less portion than what's typically given. So that's the reason why your body. That's the reason why, like in diets like that, keto says you're going to have basically a cheat week, if you will. Now, this is more along the lines of being forced into doing the bad things instead of the bad things just happening upon yourself. But basically, that's the same concept with life's ups and downs. You're going to have to force the good when the bad is happening. Okay, you're going to have to force the good when the bad is happening, because Murphy's Law is like there's a balance, right? There's a balance of good and bad, if you will. And you rode on a high of all straight good. And now the bad's just going to be coming down or crashing down on you, because that's just how the law works, right? Now, I'm not saying actively seek out the bad while you're going the good. The bad is going to happen regardless of what you do. The bad is always going to happen, regardless of what you do, regardless of how good life is. The bad will happen. All right, so don't actively seek out the bad. Trust me, Murphy's Law and the laws of laws of fucking karma is going to apply here, right? So when you're riding that down slope, all right? Typically riding a down slope is pretty fun, you know, especially if you're on a bike, snowboard, or something like that. You have to make it seem like this is just a normal part. You're just trucking on, trying to make the best of it, right? You're trying to make the best of it. Okay, so for instance, let's say your tire's broken. You need to get a new tire, or you got to replace this tire, or something along the lines. You weren't expecting it to happen. No one's expecting a flat tire. No one's ever expecting a flat tire. So what do you do in that situation? How do you try to make that into a positive? Well, you can take it as a learning time curve. For instance, if I got a flat tire right now, I would take it as a learning curve to see if I still remember how to change a tire. You know, like right now, I got a flat tire on my way to work. I would try to see if I remember how I changed the tire, right? And yes, you're gonna have to pay money to get the new tire replaced, etc., but you can learn it as a learning experience as to how you get the new tire replaced, and you get to learn what's the best tire store. You know, you can ask folks. You can take it as a learning type experience. Is basically what I would do. Take the bad as a learning type experience, and then it wouldn't be as bad. It's still gonna suck, but it wouldn't be as bad, right? You get a problem at work happens. I don't know, depending on the work, there's a major problem. Maybe there's a personnel problem. Maybe there's a financial problem. Maybe there's just something that nobody was expecting to happen. Let's say, for instance, this happens. Payroll submits the payments for payroll, right? You get paid every Thursday or Wednesday, right? And you don't get paid when you're supposed to. You're like, oh shit, why am I not getting paid? And then payroll sends a massive email out to the whole company stating, it's like, hey, something happened at the bank. The bank forgot to input in law, and so nobody's getting paid until at least Monday. All right. Well, I guarantee you, a lot of people are panicking at this point because 75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 75%. That's not an opinion. That's a statistical fact. And you could take that as a learning curve at work. Like, okay, well, what can I do to where I'm not part of that 75%, I'm that 25%. So that way I'm not freaking out like everybody else is freaking out. Right? You can do it just like that. You know, try making a negative into a positive, so that way you can actually, you know, learn from it. Try making it as best as you can. It's still gonna suck. You embrace the suck, right? But you just get over it. Basically, it's the only thing you really can do. All right. And when you're finally at the bottom, and you're like, life just cannot get as worse as this. Hopefully you don't hit that bottom. If you listen to anything I just said, hopefully you don't hit that bottom. Hopefully you kept trucking along, just kept doing it, because, like I said, it's much easier for life to fucking kick you in the nuts than to follow you real good. All right, it's much easier for me. So that's a weird way of putting that. That is a super weird way of putting that. But I'm gonna leave it. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna call it as it is. But yeah, it's just something that came up on my mind because I've been told I'm a very positive person, if you will. Even though I'm not, I don't think of myself as a positive person. I just try, making the most out of situations, regardless if it's good or bad. You know what I'm saying? I try just staying, I wouldn't say stay positive. I just try to stay, not negative, basically. There we go. I tried not to stay negative about things. I tried to stay not negative. I wouldn't say I try to stay positive. I just don't try to stay negative about things, because if you start falling into just being negative about things, negative about how life is, then you become those people on Facebook that you don't want to associate yourself with. You don't want to be associated. You do not want to be associated with negative people. And I can tell you how that works is that positive people, or positive people of that nature, attract positive people of that nature. It's not like a science. It's not like science or like the basic rules of math where you have two negatives suddenly make a positive. No. What a dick. No, it's not like that, but positive people attract positive people. Negative people attract negative people. And positive people build off of each other positively, and negative people build off of each other negatively. Alright? So try staying positive, or do what I do. It says don't stay negative. Alright? And I guarantee you'll be suddenly surrounded by people that have similar type mindset, and life will be a lot better. Trust me, this is very true in almost every social type clique. For instance, I work out. I do a lot of health things to myself, and I'm surrounded by a lot of people who like to stay healthy, who like to, maintain their bodies and things like that. And I learn things from just listening to what they do. Maybe this will work for me, maybe something I say will work for them, etc., etc. I just recently started the hunting thing again, and and suddenly I'm surrounded by a lot more hunters, hunters and fishers and things of that nature. I started doing the business classes, and then suddenly I'm surrounded by a bunch of business people talking business analytics and things of that nature. It just happens the way that happens is because social cliques tend to form with people of like and similar minds, right? Now, the key with the social clique things is, this is just a little tidbit before I go away on this video, is that don't limit yourself to one social clique, alright? Don't limit yourself to that one social clique, because then you're just going to be in a bubble and not realize what's happening in the outside world, alright? So try expanding, try being part of many different cliques. I wouldn't call them, you don't have to even call them friends, you just call them more acquaintances that you've learned from, right? That's basically all what I'm asking you. So, all what I'm suggesting. So, that's it for this video. I'm going to, finally got off the interstate here. Got to do some little extra work today, which ain't a problem. I can always do a little extra work. But I'm gonna get off this video. And if you guys like this video, give me a like, comment, and subscribe. And hopefully I catch you guys on the next one. And as always, work hard. Peace!